Welcome back as we unwind Congressman Dan Crenshaw's alarming assessment of the crisis on our southern border. Stephen, Crenshaw calls the flow of drugs and undocumented immigrants an existential threat to the nation. Is that going too far?
Well, we're heading into the midterms, right? We're weeks away, and words matter, and words are political. Regardless of what you want to call it, have we seen a surge in people crossing and a surge in drugs trying to be trafficked across the border? Sure, but let's keep in mind, fentanyl did not just pop up during the Joe Biden administration. It was a thing during the Trump administration, and it's been a thing for a while. Is it growing? Yes. Is it a problem? Yes. The verbiage that you want to use, and I'll leave that to the politicians.
Rudy, in your mind, is Crenshaw inflating the threat or telling it like it is?
Well, I think what he wants to do with the cartels is a different debate. Yes, they're involved in human smuggling operations. Yes, it's serious. And yes, it deserves a serious crackdown, one that it's getting right now. But if Crenshaw wants something like military drone strikes into Mexico, the way that we already hammer militant camps in, say, Syria, well, that's an escalation that may initially get some applause, especially from the extreme right, and some headlines, but I'm not sure it's an idea that wins broad support when you start considering the consequences of that kind of military action. Reminds me of the movie Clear and Present Danger. Didn't we learn something from that?
Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Crenshaw accused President Biden and Democrats of not just ignoring the crisis, but actually fueling it. Stephen, was that your impression?
That was my impression, and I think that may be a step too far. Okay, so there's a problem. The fact is, President Biden has not been to the border. His border czar, Kamala Harris, has not been to the border. Yes, it looks like it's not a big priority for the president and his administration. Are Democrats fueling it? Are Democrats thriving off of it? I think it's the complete opposite. I think Republicans are the ones capitalizing off of the border issue. If you look at the recent Dallas Morning News UT poll, it said that the #1 issue that voters cared about heading into the midterms in Texas was the border. Number 2 is the economy, and right behind it was abortion. So it seems like something that Republicans are thriving off of. Are Democrats wanting this? I think that's a little too far.
Rudy, that is the most critical question here. How large does the unimpeded flow of immigration and drugs loom with Texas voters?
You know, I think it looms big. I think people are starting to understand how the state response, Operation Lone Star, is being undercut by the administration, which has essentially, in my opinion, returned to the old policy of catch and release, but on a very large scale. Polls continue to show support for the migrant busing campaigns. I also think that Crenshaw is somewhat essentially right. Voters, especially in South Texas, they are tired of promises. It's not going unnoticed that Democrats have been in control of Congress for 6 years. 6 years. There's been no attempt to help the dreamers. And instead of taking advantage of that self-proclaimed great negotiator, Donald Trump, and getting immigration reform in exchange for his border wall, we've had 6 years of bitter party politics. A huge missed opportunity in my mind that initially helps fuel the midterm red wave prediction.
All right, Stephen, what are you hearing? Will concern over the border draw more voters than, say, the Texas abortion ban?
Well, if you're a person who likes polls, the polls are showing that Texas voters, at least those that have been polled, care more about the border. Now, compared to a nationwide scope, yeah, abortion is energizing Democrats. That will happen here as well. But the polls have shown the gap that Governor Abbott has over Beto O'Rourke is showing that him busing migrants, him talking about the border constantly is stuff that people care about. Abortion will bring voters to the polls, but it's just a question of will it be enough to overwhelm the number of voters who care more about the border.
Rudy, do you agree with that?
Well, Greg, you know, crime and the border are certainly the big issues here in Texas, but I don't think that you can, and any Republican can really discount and ignore the abortion issue. It remains a hot topic. It remains part of the conversation. New polls out recently showing that it is moving up in the conversation. And I think if Republicans ignore it and don't address it, it could end up biting them and hurting them come November. So I think very much the abortion issue is still in play. But as this summer moves into the fall, crime and the border, certainly big, big issues.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Another look at the interview can be found on our Fox station's YouTube sites.
And the conversation continues as we push forward topics on our social media sites like Twitter and TikTok.
And join us next week where on Texas the Issue Is, I sit down with RNC co-chair Tommy Hicks. And be sure to remember to let us know what you think the issue is.